Hello, this is Goku for One, and I'm back, this time with a pitch video. Before I get into the pitch video, essentially, I want to tell you how I came up with this pitch. Me and a friend, What Pisses Me Off 710, were talking, and I was saying how I wish there were more fantasy horror films. And before you comment, what I was talking about was Sword and Sorcery, but please give me a list of all the fantasy horror films you want below or make a video response. I'm more than welcome to read them and possibly watch most of them because I like that. But I was talking more Sword and Sorcery, and I really couldn't think of a really good example, and I came up with this joke, and this is the joke one, is essentially an elf going around killing dwarves. Basically, you take fantasy characters and you take the traditional horror film and you intertwine them. But when I really got down to thinking about it, I actually came up with a pitch, and this is it. The pitch goes as followed. Essentially, there's this princess who is tied to a barrier that doesn't let any of the monsters out of the Forest of Nightmares, and she has to get to this castle or let's say altar. She has to get to this altar by daybreak, or the barrier will go down and everything in the Forest of Nightmares will come out. And so, the Knight of Awesomeness, I'll say this now, names are horrible, I understand. I only came up with this a day ago. But the Knight of Awesomeness essentially says, I'll escort her, with a few relics to assist him. A sword made out of silver, and some other things that ward evil creatures. They venture, both of them have to venture into the Forest of Nightmares, and they quite literally, the name is not this forest is not poorly named. The name really is there for a reason, because anything you ever had a nightmare about is practically in this forest. Now, when I say that, I mean more fantasy horror kind of creatures. There would be vampires, and they would really bat-like monstrous creatures. There are lycans. There are trolls. Things like that. Possibly even a dragon. And essentially, this knight has to escort this princess through this forest. And essentially, before you ask, the forest is so massive, going around it, they would never make it before daybreak, and they have to make it before daybreak, or the barrier is unwind. Now, I haven't figured out why they didn't do it beforehand. Why they obviously knew this existed, but. Yet again, I only thought of this. I haven't worked out all the details. But essentially, they go through the forest and they fight. And for the entire movie, he's fighting every kind of creature you can imagine. And trying to protect her with all his stern and nobleness. And eventually they get to the end. And they get to the altar. And they split up again for the next time that this has to happen. Probably the next generation. And, I mean, ultimately, that's my idea. Now, an idea I just thought of, and this is just thought of. What if the princess was actually an infant that had just been born? And essentially, when a new generation begins, they have to go to the altar. Because obviously the princess would be weak and not capable of fighting. And so, infant works. The idea is that the knight has to do this all by himself. And yeah, having a baby being carried through the Forest of Nightmares is not really awesome. But the point is, it puts a lot on it. And this forest has so many nightmarish creatures that nobody wants to go in here. So before you say, oh, why didn't they have an entire brigade? Because when people go in this forest, they die. They aren't expecting him to survive. It's just, you let this one person go, and possibly, maybe he gets out. Or everybody dies anyways. So it's kind of like a no-win situation. So this is definitely a very basic premise. There's not a lot of details here. I don't know all the monsters. I have no idea on characterization. I know the Knight of Awesomeness would be brave, stoic, strong. Um, Pretty much a Mary Sue character, but that's the idea of that character. Um, and once you get into it, also the forest. Also another idea is that the forest uh, is also partially a forest of illusions. So, um, if you don't know the trick to the forest, which he would know, which would come into play somewhere where he messes up, but if you don't know, you'd be going around in circles and you will never get to the end because the idea is the forest is big, but it isn't massively big. The idea is that it's big enough. It's at least 5 by 10 miles, 5 long. Yeah, it's big enough. It is a massive forest, but it isn't so big that he needs every second to get from one point from one end to another. But yeah, I mean, this is my premise. Please tell me what you think. Please give me any suggestions. If you want to run with this, go ahead. I would love somebody to do a video response tidying it up and figuring out the flaws. And please, if you want to make a video response telling me every problem with this, go ahead. This is a very simple premise. So yes, this is Goku for the Sim 1, and I'll see you next time.